I spent the last 30 days using the base model, the cheapest version of the M2 MacBook Air, as my only computer. And in that time, how exactly has it held up? Well, to be honest, the M2 MacBook Air is an excellent laptop. Now, while I did not expect to hate it over the last month, I really enjoyed my experience. Now, you may wonder, what exactly have I been up to these past couple of days? Well, I have used it to edit videos, write my scripts and articles while having a bunch of tabs open in Chrome. I've had different video calls, and because school starts next week, this will be my daily computer till after I graduate. So I'm not just going to keep talking about benchmark scores and tech jargon and call it a day. Now, I have used the hell out of this thing, so let's start this off with the price and what you get for it. Now, like I said, this is the lowest and the cheapest model you can get, and it costs around $11.99 USD. Now, it may be the cheapest, but in reality, there's absolutely nothing cheap about it. For $11.99, you get the 8-core M2 processor, 8GB of unified memory, and 256GB of storage. Now, if you want to start this off with things I don't like, let's start it off with this. 256GB of storage for a computer in 2022 is ridiculous, especially from a product from Apple, especially a laptop that costs $1,200 USD. Now, having 256GB of storage means if you're using this for a Core 9 to 5 or a content creator, you will need to carry around a hard drive to accommodate for that lack of space. Now, on a computer, you only get around 225GB if I'm being honest, because the operating system takes already 25GB on its own. Crazy part is, if you want to bump up to 512 on the M2 MacBook Air, it's $200 more expensive, which begs the question, why spend so much money on this laptop at all? Anyway, let's move on to something I actually like. Now, when it comes to the speed and workflow, the M2 MacBook Air is really fast, and I'm not talking about benchmark scores. I'm talking about using it in my everyday workflow, video calling, editing videos, and just being productive during my work hours. Now, everything feels snappy, and that is due to the updated M2. Compared to the M1 MacBook Air, it feels 2 times faster, and I'm not talking about regular work, but in creating videos. Now, the M2 MacBook Air is really great as a content creation tool. It's quiet and does not require you to be at an outlet with its outstanding battery life. Now, something that gets lost in this computer overheats and throttles comments within its initial release, people forget to mention that this computer is well optimized. And this is year 2 in the Apple Silicon transition, and a lot of programs have already come over to the ecosystem that the laptops Apple creates don't need to work hard to get tasks done. The processor is already powerful on its own, and I was really impressed by it. But this brings me to something I didn't like. Now, once I started opening many tabs and many apps at the same time, it began to get rough. Remember, it's only 8GB of memory that is in here, and a lot of websites now are basically programs that are active all the time and takes a lot of memory. So if you are buying the cheaper base model, you can have a lot of tabs open in the background like other expensive laptops in the Apple lineup. We all just have to band together and accept that 512GB of storage with 16GB of memory is more ideal in 2022. Now, the next thing I really like is the new body and form factor of the M2 MacBook Air. It is hard to deny that this is a premium laptop. It looks great to use, it feels great to use, and if you're the kind of person that moves around a lot, like going to coffee shops, traveling and whatnot, it fits into almost every space. And that is something a lot of people don't think about when shopping for a new laptop. Basically, you're thinking, how well can this fit into my daily spaces? I think the physical design is pretty good, but even with that, I still have about 2 issues with it. One being that this laptop is a smudge magnet. Most of the time, I find myself using a microfiber cloth to get the smudges off, and 2 minutes after, they're back on there. Now, while I have the gray one and it minimizes how it looks, I recommend the Starlight color because it is the best one to hide all the smudges. Second issue I have, and I mentioned this in my initial review, is the Thunderbolt 3 ports. Now, I'm not sure why, but this only comes with a Thunderbolt 3 port, while the Pro laptops have Thunderbolt 4. This means that your M2 will only export to one single display. Now, while this may not be an issue to some people, if you work from home and you're managing many projects, or you work in tech, or you just multitask a lot, this will hinder your productivity a whole lot. Now, you may say Apple does not market the M2 as a Pro laptop, but come on. There are laptops out there that are half the price of the M2 and provide this feature. So you're telling me an M2 that has a hard time throttling or even overheating can't support a dual screen? You know, that is sort of a deciding factor. If you want to have a dual screen, then maybe you should consider getting another laptop. On to most things I liked about the M2 MacBook Air, and that is the keyboard. While they may seem trivial to some people, to me, the keyboard is one of the most imperative features when choosing a laptop, especially as a content creator and an MBA student. And the keyboard is pretty good. It adds to the awesome keyboard of the M1 MacBook Air, and I also like that they increased each key, making sure you hit each intended one. I have written a few scripts with this and also on my iMac, and I would say I sort of prefer using this laptop to write my scripts because it is very easy to get into a typing rhythm, and once you start, that is the most important function. Now, if I'm being honest, my iMac keyboard is pretty nice and all, but it does take me a while to get into that rhythm. The display is probably one of the best upgrades from the M1 MacBook Air. It's not exactly the biggest upgrade, but it is very noticeable. First of all, this allows for more screen real estate when using this laptop. The brightness also allows for better use indoors and outdoors. Now, it may be little, but the extra brightness goes a long way, especially with summer that is still here. And with the notch houses the camera. It is an upgrade from the M1 and it's not so bad. Now, it wasn't bad on your M1, don't get me wrong, but this is a nice addition to have, especially for people that are working from home. The speakers are great. They are on par with the M1 MacBook Air. I'm not really particular about the speakers on laptops. So far they are loud enough for me to listen to my music and podcast. I'm good. And finally, we have the battery life, which has been good. This will easily get you through the day of work or multiple days. If you aren't pushing the processor a bit too much, then you should be alright. I also continue to love that you don't need to plug this into a wall to get its full power. All that power and usability matched with an 18-hour battery is what makes the M1 and the M2 one of the best laptops that are out there. The fact that you can do all that without having to worry about the battery life is amazing. Now, the biggest and the most glaring issue with the M2 MacBook Air is where it's placed within the other laptops. It is in a weird position because when you start upgrading the specs to cater to your needs, you're entering a territory of objectively better laptops like the 14-inch MacBook Pro. And that is as good as a deal for power users as the M1 MacBook Air is for regular folks. Now, if you're looking for power, get the 14-inch MacBook Pro, and if you want to spend less, get the M1 MacBook Air. It is very hard to recommend the M2 MacBook Air, especially when there is better value for laptops that are out there. Thank you guys for watching, and if you like this video, make sure you click that like button, and you should please consider subscribing to the channel. My name is KJOS, and I will catch you guys in the next one where I talk all things tech.